Prayer. Lord God, thank you so much for giving us this time together. And bless us as we go about studying your word. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. Just names. Who have we talked about in Genesis? Names. Okay. God. Adam and Eve. Abraham. Noah. Noah's kids. Cain and Abel. Jacob. Noah's wife Ishmael. Yes, Isaac. Rebecca. Rachel. Okay, Sarah. Okay. We got a bunch of people. And all of them characters that are sort of working into the story. And in fact, I'm thinking that after we finish this, we may look at Galatians. And the reason I picked Galatians is Paul uses a lot of these Old Testament people. In particular, Hagar and Sarah, to make a very New Testament point about who Jesus is. And so you'll recognize some of the names in his letter to the Galatians, and then you can say, oh, I know who they are. Some people don't, but I do. Be real arrogant about it, because that's what Christianity is all about. Okay. So we're in the middle of the story of whom have we looked at? We've been looking at Jacob. Okay. And what have we? What's happened in Jacob? Well, first, just the name Jacob. What do we immediately know about Jacob because of his name? Jacob. Yeah, good. Yeah, somebody says to you, Miranda, you're a real Jacob. You know what you do?
Brush them off.
Well, you brush them off or punch them right in the mouth. Okay. So Jacob is not a positive name. All right. So we know something of his character, just like we know. See, an English major always comes out every now and then. We know Abraham because it's his name his father. We know Isaac, his name means laughter. So Jacob tells us something about who he is. So does the name of his brother. Because his name is Esau, and Esau means red, hairy monkey man. All right, so we've got Jacob and his brother Esau. What makes Jacob and Esau important or unique? Well, true, but what makes them red at birth unique? Well, God, yes, and what makes that? Because we did the same thing with it. That's a good Pauline point. Paul says, well, God loved Isaac and didn't think much of Esau, but then they came from different mothers. What makes Jacob Jacob and Esau, the perfect example to show the sovereignty of God, God's control? Yeah, because they were twins! They were twins! And so God chose one before the other, twin boys, before any of them had done anything. It says that in Malachi, and then Paul quotes it. Before they did anything, good or bad. God chose Jacob, didn't choose Esau. Paul says, your response to that, the idea that God chose one twin boy over the other, you're going to cry out what? What would be the first thing? Foul! Right? Unfair! That's terrible! And so we make all these gymnastics. Well, God knew the da-da-da-da-da. No, Paul says, God, no.
Challenge flag.
Yeah, throw the challenge flag. This is not fair. Yeah. Now, what does Paul say? When because he even anticipates it. He says, now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this is unfair. It shows injustice on the part of God.
That's God's instruction.
Paul says what? Well, one, it shows that God is in charge, so God can pretty much choose who he chooses. But the other thing is equally important. And yes.
We don't care what Paul says.
Paul is the most important person. Paul shaped my theology. I am a Paul man.
That's right. He shaped his. You know what we're referring to, right? husband say, oh.
Okay.
He's the reason I'm here.
See? You were brought here by Paul too. That's the reason I'm here too. Yay! Okay, but Paul. Yeah. Okay. Well done. But what he says, one, it shows that God is in charge. It's also, I think, important that Paul, now I feel self-conscious, saying Paul, that his intention wasn't mercy and condemnation. His intention is mercy and compassion. So, in other words, God chose Jacob over Esau before they were born because God's goal is mercy and compassion. In other words, God chose Jacob in order to be merciful to Jacob and Esau. You know, since God's intention was mercy and compassion, it wasn't that to praise Jacob and condemn Esau, but so God's purpose, which is grounded in mercy and compassion, could be worked out. Okay? So that's also important. That for Paul, it wasn't plus and minus. You know, so God could, you know, praise who he wants and damn who he doesn't. That's not what Paul says. It's so he could work out his purpose of mercy and compassion. And he does the same thing with Pharaoh. Why did he harden Pharaoh's heart? You know, and harden his heart meant Pharaoh didn't have a choice but to do what Pharaoh did. You know, in fact, if you read the story, which we make sometime, there were points where Pharaoh said, "Let him go." You know, after plague 3, let him go. I can't take any more frogs. You know, let him go. And then it says that God hardened his heart, which means Pharaoh didn't just change his mind. God changed his mind. You know, why did God do that? Mercy and compassion. To who? Well, to Moses and his children. Who else? To Pharaoh and his children. You know, so, you know, it's that mercy and compassion, which is also important. This is not unfair because you got to read the end of the book. And the end of the book is mercy and compassion. You know, that's the last chapter. You know. Okay, but anyway, so we've got these 2 boys. Now, what are some of the things we've seen in the Jacob and Esau? Does Jacob prove to be a real Jacob? Oh yeah. Jacob is a Jacob. Okay, what are some things that go on that cause Jacob to be a real Jacob? If you know what I mean. Yin and yang, by the way. Very nice. What's that? Okay, stole his birthright. Could he be convicted? Probably not. You know, probably not. But, you know, he kind of Jacobed his way, you know, into the birthright. You know. So that was, now who knows that the promise is going to flow through Jacob? God does. His mother does. Rachel does. We know. Does Jacob know? Not necessarily. Or if he does, he knows it from his mother. He doesn't know it from God. God spoke to his mother. God spoke to us. We heard it. You know, Jacob didn't hear it. So everything when Jacob is following after his mother, you could say his mother, she knows God's intention and is trying to work through, you know, being an instrument of God. So that Jacob becomes the one of the promise. So you could say, well, Rachel, you know, knew what needed to be done. But Jacob, yeah, he's just doing it. Just do it. Yeah, just do it. Okay, so get the birthright the way he gets the blessing is much better. Lies to his father, his blind, dying father, you know, to get the blessing. You know.
Has a brother that wants to kill him.
Got a brother that wants to kill him. And what does he do when he finds out his brother wants to kill him?
He runs away.
Gets out of town. He also gets out of town because his parents want...
You got a little advice on that, didn't he?
What's that?
You got a little advice.
Yeah. His mom, and he was kind of a mama's boy. His mom wants to make sure he gets out of town, right? And so gets out of town. All right. But in another strain, he's leaving town in order to Well, make money, but also get a wife, right? Because his mother doesn't want him to marry one of those, yeah, those Hittites. I'm not going to use the word. I'm not going to use the word.
The weird people.
Yeah, let's just say they were
Not controlled.
Hittites. Okay, so we don't want to, we just go there, you know. All right. So he goes in, much better to marry a cousin than a Hittite. So goes back and finds a cousin that he really likes. And her name is Rachel, right? Because she's beautiful, fair face, and has a sister who's also his cousin, named Leah, you know, who has good teeth, and
Pleasant personality.
has a wonderful personality, you know, if that you could appreciate if you happen to own a bag. So we got Rachel and Leah. Leah's the oldest, right? Laban is their daddy, right? Jacob makes a deal with Laban, and this is the exact way I got Debbie. What is that?
7 years.
Okay, 7 years, you know, and hot dog, you know, you get the dog, you get my daughter, you know, and Jacob says, sounds good to me, worked 7 years, Laban gets him drunk at the wedding, covers Leah up with a lot of makeup, you know, heavily massacred eyes, you know, is ready to go, and the next morning, Jacob wakes up. Oh, man. I have the worst headache I have ever had. Turns and sees the two beside of Leah and says, I take that back. I now have the worst headache I've ever had. And as we do after Christmas. What's that?
A beautiful smile.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, that's right. Yeah, because she has nice teeth. They weren't hers, but they were nice. So he goes, and like we would do if you get a food processor that doesn't work, you go to the store and complain. And he files a complaint with Laban and says, what did you do to me? Right? And Laban says,
I switched off.
well, you didn't read the fine print.
Yeah, we didn't designate in writing.
Yeah, that's right. We said daughter. Yes, and we have a custom that the older daughter has to marry her cousin first. And so there you go. And Jacob says, you're killing me here. And Laban says, well, I'll throw in the younger daughters in exchange for 7 more years. So Jacob was Jacob by Laban. But
Laban was the expert.
yes, Laban was, but Jacob catches up with him. Now, as he is working for Laban, what does Jacob do while he's working for him? Yes, Jacob is busy. He gets busy because because God sees that he doesn't really like Leah much, but loves Rachel. God produced, yes. Leah becomes very fertile, you know, as we would say, and she's popping out sons right now. And, Reuben, Levi, Simeon, Judah. Well, but poor old Rachel is what? Barren. Okay. So, to compensate for her barrenness, she sends in Bilhah, the slave. Her slave to have children for her. And Jacob, being a fine, upstanding man, says, hubba da hubba. And he, what's that? Yeah. Well, it takes a long time, but Rachel convinces him. And I think time had a different meaning. People back then lived for hundreds of years, lifespans of hundreds of years. It took Rachel 30 seconds to convince Jacob to accept her mate, which in dog years is, like 2 seconds. But so, and her slave starts having kids, and Leah is, she is, because she's getting older and tired. So she sends in her maid, Zilpah, and they have 2 kids, and then, there's a story about the mandrakes, and getting the mandrakes, and what is it? Reuben gets his mom mandrakes, and she won't give any to Rachel, and it has more kids, and finally Rachel has a bouncing baby, Joseph. And he becomes, we don't know anything about him. So, but he's Rachel's son. Now, Taxes has all these kids running around. Jacob, now in the meantime, God has done what with Jacob? Well, multiplied, made the covenant again, right, with Jacob. And God made a covenant with Abraham, God made a covenant with Isaac, now God makes a covenant with Jacob, when he's asleep and sees the Seir way to heaven and that kind of shit. All right, so he decides that he's going to start on his own, go back to his homeland. And he doesn't want to leave empty-handed because Laban's prospered as a result of his presence, right? And so what deal does Jacob make?
Splitting the sheep. Don't take all.
Yes, that's right. I will only take the speckled animals. You got to be striped. Striped or speckled. And they'll be mine, and you get to keep the rest. And Laban, because Laban is a conniver, what does he do?
Yeah.
Removes it and says, ha, ha, ha. Now I've got you. But Jacob does something that every veterinarian knows works. He strips bark off a tree, and it causes, when the sheep get busy, they're looking at the stripe thing, and they say, huh. Yes, and then you end up with striped sheep. Yeah, that's right. And speckled sheep.
That was a race, but psychological recessive gene traits on it has nothing to do with that. It's just the way they explain it.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And in fact, it's from the sheep that Jacob ends up getting. That's where you get Arba. Yeah. So anyway, he takes the flocks, right, and he does what with them? Leaves, right? But Rachel, that little vixen, does what? She robs her daddy, and daddy finds him and says, somebody has stolen my stuff. And Jacob says, I'm going to kill the one. You check the tents, and I'll kill the one who took it. Rachel took it. That's right. So how does Rachel end up? She was smart too. She was a Jacob. Yeah.
She was her daddy.
Yeah. So when she was her daddy's girl, and she does something that has nothing to do with striped sheep. And to avoid her father finding the idols. And Laban finally says, I'm sick and tired of this. Here's a rock. Jacob, you go on one side. I'm going to go on the other side. I'm going to leave you alone. You leave me. And we'll leave. Okay. All right, so that's kind of where we ended, but we still have one loose end, right? And what is the loose end? Particularly since Jacob is back home, in his homeland. His older brother is really, really mad at him, right? And that's kind of where we start in chapter 32. Because Jacob is now back in the land, right? He's about to re-enter his land. And he realizes if he re-enters this land, he is going to have to deal with his brother. Now, Jacob, though, isn't in it, right? So what does Jacob do? What are some of the things? What's the first thing Jacob does?
He ran into an angel.
Okay, he gets an angel. Angel does his thing. So he enters the land, and now we got Esau, right? And Esau is gunning for him, right? And so Jacob does what?
Sends out messages.
Okay, he sends out messages, right? And to go to Esau, right? Now, and you know, there's a lot of baloney in this thing. You know, I've got sheep and donkeys and all this.
Like to cause
You know,
drama.
all this kind of stuff. But what is, by sending out these messages, what is Jacob really doing? Well, he is kissing out. He's really going to start kissing out later. You know.
He's probably scouting.
Yeah, okay. He's kind of getting information, right? You know, one, he wants to find out if his brother is still gunning for him. Because if he's still gunning for him, he's got a problem, right? You know, he's got a problem. And, you know, if Esau, everything's cool with Esau, then Jacob's got no problem. Or if Esau is intimidated by all Jacob's stuff. You know, all right, so Jacob needs some information, right? And he kind of gets it. And what message does he receive from his messengers?
He's coming to see you.
All I know is your brother and 400 men are coming to see you. Now, you know, if anybody has seen Goodfellas or The Sopranos or Breaking Bad, this is not the kind of news you want to hear, right? You know, that there are 400, the guy who wants to kill you is coming to see you with 400 of his closest friends, right? And he's about to make him an offer he can't refuse, right? Now, clearly Jacob is trusting God, right? Because his reaction to this news is he is greatly afraid, okay, and distressed. And so what is, but you see, Jacob he's a thinker. He's a thinker. What does Jacob decide to do? Okay, he splits his stuff, okay? And what is the purpose? And the guy even tells him, what's the purpose in splitting his stuff?
He attacks him, he should attack.
Okay, that's right. Now, this, you know, if his brother attacks one, he's saved half of it. If he attacks the other, he's saved half. Now, what does that infer that Jacob where will Jacob not be?
Probably the closest to Esau.
He's not going to be in either half, right? Because Jacob is concerned about losing his stuff. Not losing his stuff. So he's not saying, well, I'll be with this one. You know, I'll be with this one. You know, he ain't going to be with either one. That's why he can be sure he'll have half left. Because Jacob is going to be hiding under a bush or in a cave somewhere, right? Okay. So that's the first thing he does. Now, what's the second thing? And so he's strategic here. He's going to divide it into half. He can only lose half. And since he stole what he's got, what's the second thing he does?
Confesses.
Okay, he goes to God. And what does he want from God?
Help.
He wants help. You know, now there's a lot of I'm not worthy of all your steadfast love and da 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 da. But you know, that seems kind of setting God up for what Jacob really wants. And what does Jacob really want? He wants everything. He wants God to protect, deliver. There's not a lot of God, I recognize did some unfair things to my brother. And I haven't lived the way I should have lived. There's none of that. There is, oh, by the way, God, you made a promise. He's going to kill me, and that's not going to be good. Oh, but he gets that. So Jacob divides his stuff so he can only lose half. He goes to God and says, God, You know, you let me down here. You got to deliver me. What is the next thing he does? I love it.
It sounds just like a gift for each.
Okay, he picks out a whole bunch of stuff, and he's to present as a gift. But where does he put this stuff? Out in front of him, right? Which means if Jacob and his 400 men are coming to get him, what is Jacob and his 400 men going to have to do? It's going to have to go through all this stuff. You know, he's going to have to hack his way through the donkeys and the camel and the sheep, right, to get to Jacob. So what Jacob has done is he's given him a gift, hopefully which will placate him, but also creating for himself what? A diversion, and maybe more accurately, a shield. He is creating a shield in front of him to protect him. Oh, but it gets better than that. Okay? Because evidently they are on the river, on a creek, right? And Esau is there, right? And Jacob is concerned. So what does Jacob do by this Jabbok creek? Well, it doesn't jam enough. He does something that he thinks is even more effective. And he's going to do it later. Again, he's going to do it later. What does he do with his family? He sends his family ahead, which now means the gifts are shield and his family is a shield. Oh, Jacob is nice. Jacob is good. So Esau is going to hack his way through donkey, sheep, slaves, camels, then women, children, his own wives and children, to get to noble Jacob, right? All right. Now, while he's on the other side of the creek, we've got an odd little story. And what happens to Jacob? Now, this is, and we get the way the writer is shaping this. It would appear as though Esau is going to show up. Yeah, well, really soon, right? This is written with expediency. It's not like a month later Esau came. This is, we get the impression that Esau is coming. It's the next day he will get it, right? Because that's the way the writer is shaping it. And we, the reader, are being brought into the story. So this is all happening really fast. We got Jacob by himself, right? What happens to Jacob when he's by himself? Okay, he ends up wrestling with this man. Okay, and Jacob, and it's the man that wrestles with Jacob, not Jacob wrestling with the man. And who is the man? Don't know. The reader doesn't know. But they're wrestling, which means Jacob is doing suplexes, and the man, is got, headlock, those kind of things. And finally, Jacob puts the guy in a figure 4 leg lock, right? And the guy is they're wrestling, and it's all night long, and the guy, to get out of it, hits Jacob on the hip, right, and knocks it out of joint. Okay. Now, out of joint. Now, what does Jacob? But they wrestle, right? But Jacob still has him in that figure 4 leg lock, which everybody knows he cannot get out of. Okay, and what does the guy do? Knocks him out, but he's still holding it, right? And what does the guy that's being wrestled, what does he do? Say to Jacob, let me go. And Jacob says, not until you bless him, right? And so the guy says to him, okay, what? What does the guy say? Okay, what's your name? Jacob. And the guy says, You're no longer going to be called Jacob. You are going to be called
Israel.
Israel. See the L at the end? Name of God. Because you have struggled with God. Okay. Now, what is the significance of Jacob getting this new name? Yeah. So, in a sense, he becomes kind of a new person. But, there are some qualities in Jacob that are still the same. So, but he gets a new name. Again, think about it. Little boy talking to his dad. Why are we called the children of Israel? Well, let me tell you the story of Jacob and how his name was changed to Israel. And it's going to be his children that are going to be the tribes of Israel. So again, it explains what it explains what people already knew. Okay. But Jacob is special. It's like he's kind of a new man. So what does Jacob do there? He tends to do what people do, builds an altar, gives the name Peniel, which means face of God, because that's what's happened, right? And again, related to what the Jews, Israelites will do later, what is the significance of the fact that his hip socket was put out of joint? They don't need the hip joint. I guess they don't. But they said they don't. I don't know. It's not in the law that you can't eat the hip joint. But, okay, I'll buy that. So we've got this. Now, we're not going to call him Jacob anymore, although every now and then the writer would call him Jacob. But he is now named Israel. Okay. Now, beginning of chapter 33. But we still don't have a resolution to this Esau business, right? Esau is there. Jacob is there. He's got all his stuff in front of him. He's got his wife and kids in front of him. And there he is beginning. The writer reminds us that Esau is coming with how many people? 400. And Jacob sees them. And again, what does Jacob do? Typical Jacob. Okay, puts his wife, and he says it explicitly, puts his wife and kids in front of him.
As a shield.
Well, he doesn't say as a shield, but, that's where they are. That's where they are. And what happens? So, this writer is so good with with so few words. We get the sense how, if you were going to describe this picture, Jacob sees Esau 400 men, dust on the hill. All of a sudden you see them, this 400 person army.
Yeah, you got the drums going.
You got the drums going, flags, the swords glimmering in the sun, flags flying. Jacob is there. He's got his stuff in front of him. He says, Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, Zilpah. You and the kids, you need a better view. So come on, go on up front. Go on up front and Leah, stand right here. You'll get a good view. That's what he tells the kid. He tells Reuben, put down the sandwich and start counting them in, and what is Jacob doing?
Through his group, telling them.
I'm with you. I'm with you. All the way. And he's hiding under a bush, somewhere in the back. But that's what we got. So we've got Esau. We expect Esau to do what? To kill him. But what does Esau end up doing? runs up and kisses it. And you know, you can imagine this guy fighting his way through the donkeys and the camels and the sheep and past the family, you know, just to get to his brother. And he hugs him and kisses him. And how is this encounter described? How does the writer, because the writer must feel it's good enough to describe in detail, because he really goes into detail.
It's more emotionally direct.
Yeah, that's interesting, Miranda, because as you read it, you kind of feel emotion.
Yeah.
You know that here is, you feel emotion coming from who?
From both of them.
Well, yeah, coming from both of them. What emotion is Jacob feeling? Relief. You know, Esau seems to really miss his brother, really love his brother. And bygones have been bygones. And, you know, it goes into, you know, and if you put it sort of in a modern, you know, parlance, you know, you got Esau. Are those your wives and kids? Come over here. Give Uncle Esau a hug. You know, aren't you beautiful? What a fair face and shape and body. Yeah, and Leah, you really have good teeth there. And oh man, I see your maids are there, and God, don't get me started about maids. You know, so it seems really, really nice. And Esau seems really, really nice. You know, as Jacob is kind of waiting for the axe to fall, because he's still doing that baloney. Oh, I am your servant. You know, I am not worthy. And you know, Esau seems very natural and misses his brother, which is kind of interesting. Now, why do you think the writer? Because Esau is going to be the father of another nation. He's going to be father of another nation. The Edomites that are not going to be friendly towards Israel, and particularly Judah. Why would the writer present Esau in such a positive light? And Jacob, through this whole business with Esau, Jacob has not been a positive figure. You know, he just hasn't. You know, he's been scheming. He hasn't done anything illegal, but he's done some things that are pretty questionable, like putting his wife and kids in front of him. You know, as you know, whether you say shields or whether, because I want my brother to see my family. You know, this is kind of a strange thing. You know, why do you think the writer would spend so much time and energy showing Esau in the most positive light possible?
Maybe he thought he was going to kill Jacob with love.
Maybe. Yeah, and when I ask that, I don't have an answer. I don't know that I have an answer. You know, that maybe sort of what Paul says, you know, when you repay evil with good, it's like piling hot coals on a person's head, although that's actually a positive image. But, you know, that you can make it feel real guilty, you know, that's maybe, that's a possibility, you know. Okay, shows that he's blessed. Yeah, Jacob, that God is protecting him, but isn't protecting him the way Jacob expected. You know, Jacob expected God to send a plague on to Esau, and maybe, this is God answering the prayer. One of the things that I find interesting, and I'm not saying this is the answer, but I find this interesting, and I think I was talking to somebody about it last week. As they're writing the stories of the patriarchs, and if you ever see the word patriarch, these are the Old Testament patriarch. The patriarch comes from the Greek word patros, which means father, and archeos, which means king. So they're the father kings. These are Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. They're the patriarchs. They're the fathers. The writer has not portrayed the fathers as sort of superhuman. You know, the fathers have been portrayed sometimes as very questionable. You know, they are not even moral paragons. but they're still blessed. Yeah, and I think I've got to believe, since it was done that way, that was intentional. That the focus, for the writer of Genesis, the focus should never be on Abraham, but should be on the God of Abraham. That God is working his purpose out through Abraham, but that doesn't mean you worship Abraham or see Abraham as his moral paragon. Abraham was a human being that God blessed. Isaac was a human being that God blessed. Heck, Jacob was really a human being that God blessed. These were not paragons of virtue. And yet God used them all, which again, causes us to say, you don't have to be a paragon. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. Sort of like they say about, a big brother. Or a foster parent. You don't have to be perfect to be a foster parent. Yeah, just be there. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, this has worked itself out. I love at the end Esau, because he's found his brother, and the sense is Esau really missed his brother. What does Esau propose at the end of the story? And it shows. And we'll talk about what he shows. Esau makes a proposal to his twin brother at the very end, after they've gotten together and they visited and everything. So there's no question Jacob knows everything is with his brother. His brother makes a proposal. What's the proposal his brother makes? Let's go together. The team is back together. The Isaac boys. Think of what we could do together. We're going to be side by side, walking into the future. And so he said, what do you think? What do you think, little brother? Oh, brother of the blessing. What do you think? And Jacob says,
He doesn't really tell him what he thinks.
well, this has been real trouble. And we've got little ones that have been kind of pushed, and they need to take a break, And I'll tell you, you get started, and we'll catch up. And Esau says, promise? And he says, I'm the guy with the promise. And Esau says, okay, and takes off down the road, heading north, and Jacob takes off down the road, heading south, and settles someplace else. So as his last contact with a brother who ran out, had every reason to hate and to kill him, Jacob just lies to him. I mean, he just lies. Yeah, well, whatever reason, doesn't tell us the reason. Esau could not have been more inviting to it. And you said, as you read it, and I think it's accurate, you read it just the way I think the reader wanted you to read it. You felt emotion, that Esau was really sincere about it.
And Jacob, though, was scared to death that, okay, yeah, I can go with you, but somewhere along the line, you're going to run me out.
He wants his own.
So that's why he won't go the other
He takes off the other.
He wants his
But I think that's classic. Even though Jacob is, and again, I think this kind of goes back to the way the patriarchs are presented. Even though Jacob is a new man, because he's got a new name, he's now Israel. Although clearly we see that that's part of one strain and not others, because in other traditions he's still Jacob. But in this one story, the way they've put the story together, he's now a changed man. His character is still there. Yeah, it hasn't changed much. Now, so we got that done. Chapter 34 is one of those interesting non-vegetative kind of stories in chapter 34. This is when the squash used the paring knife. Remember when they were listing the children of Jacob and Leah? There were boys mentioned, 4 boys mentioned in the first bunch, and 1 girl. And the girl's name was Dinah. Okay.
Anyone find us?
No, that's right. So, Dinah's there, is a sister. And who are her brothers? Well, Reuben is a brother. Simeon, Levi, and Judah are brothers of Dinah. Okay. So Dinah must have been, well, she didn't have to. I remember she was the daughter of Leah. But evidently Dinah caught the eye of a young prince, right? Okay. And what happens with this young prince? He becomes enamored with her, right? And he does what young men do when they're enamored with a young lady. What's that? You, yeah. You seize her and send her a card and flowers. No, he doesn't. Shechem, the son of Hamor, takes liberties with Dinah. Okay. But he loved her, right? It says he loved her. And in fact, it says his soul was drawn to Dinah. And afterwards, he spoke tender to her. Yeah.
Afterwards, like, don't tell your dad.
Yeah. Well, but he kind of says something to his dad. He says, Dad, and you know, the best way to envision this is, and I know will resonate with some of your homes, but maybe not with others. You know, you've got to envision an Andy Hardy, where Andy Hardy goes to talk to his father. And that's what Shechem does. He goes and talks to his father and says, I'm in love with Judy Garland. Yeah. Or Margaret Rutherford. And his dad says, no, it doesn't say. But Jacob hears from his daughter what? So he's talking to, Shechem is talking to his dad, says, I love her, I want her to be my wife. And Dinah says, I was defiled. Okay? All right. What's the proposal from Hamor? What does Hamor propose to Jacob? What does, well, it's not a shotgun weapon.
Oh,
He gets some money and,
Well, that's Jacob's response. What does Hamor, Shechem's father, what's the proposal he makes to Jacob? Because remember, Shechem went to his dad and said, Dad, I really want to marry this girl, the daughter of Jacob. You need to make a deal with Jacob. And Hamor said, I'll take care of it. And Hamor goes and says,
if you give me your daughter for my son, then
Okay.
I'll give some money.
well, yeah, that's right. The land will be yours. We can work out this great deal. You know, in a way, like in a medieval movie. You know, we're uniting these two great families, and we will share and da 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 da. You can share the land and all this kind of jazz. But Jacob and his boys know that Shechem did something not so very nice, did something horrible to their sister. And so they make a counter proposal. What they're doing is making a covenant, right? Hamor says, you let Shechem marry your daughter and we will live in peace, you can use the land, yada, yada, yada. And Jacob said, okay, there's only one thing, sounds great. There's only one thing that's a problem. And what's the problem, Chris? Circumcision, right. The problem is circumcision. You see, we are not allowed, our young ladies are not allowed to marry uncircumcised men. Therefore, in order for your son to marry my daughter, he has to become circumcised. Okay. But not only him.
Everybody else?
What? Everybody. Everybody needs to be circumcised. Oh. What's that? It is going to become a circumcision party. Yeah. Okay, bring out the wine and the Ginzu night. Because we're going to have ourselves a circumcision party. All right. All right, so what does Hamor and Shechem decide? They jump on it. We could rephrase it, which might be better. So they're looking forward to the big day. So they say it's worth it, Dinah's worth it. And so they, what's that?
That's nice of them.
It's nice of them. You know, I'm sure the guy down the street, you know, is all that excited. Well, I'll do anything for Shechem. You know, what's that?
Your son probably wasn't excited about it.
Well, he loves. You know who wouldn't be excited? Hamor wouldn't be excited. You know, but anything for my boy. Anything for my boy.
Who's yielding the knife? So, well, anyway, so all the men of Hamor end up being served. Okay? And after they become circumcised, right? There is a period of recommended non-activity. You know, you are to heal. I was going to say ice it, but that's not good. You're to heal. You're to use this time to heal. And so the guys are sitting around healing. And while they're sitting around healing, they are not at the best. Who shows up? The brothers. Which brothers? Dinah's brothers. Which brothers of Dinah? Levi and Simeon. Woo! And Levi and Simeon decide that the circumcision cut isn't deep enough. So what do? They start whacking off all kinds of stuff, right? So they end up killing, who do they kill? They kill the males. They kill the males. So they kill the males. So Shechem, and they're doing that because of what Shechem did. They get Dinah out. They take all the stuff, right? Okay. So what? And there's a bunch of women that are unhappy now. You know, maybe they're happy because their husbands are gone. You know, so they end up. There's a lot of widows. Now, what does Jacob say when their boys get home? And Jacob asks the boys, like a parent does, "Where you been? You know, seems like there's a lot of blood on you. Where you been? What? Yeah, which is, again, that's typical Jacob. His first reaction is, they're going to come and get me. You know, it's not my daughter. You know, it's me. You know, and the boys say what? We had to do this because they did something terrible to us. Now, why is this story in here? Why did that happen? Okay, that something happens. Okay. Okay, that's a reason to include it.
Obviously, there's some kind of rule or law or something that would be allowed to do something like this.
Would sure seem to be.
Maybe on that. Nowhere else is
Yeah.
Just an excuse to get all this stuff.
Okay. Then he's prospering again, again. Yeah, Jacob ends up richer than he was before.
And trying to coordinate both communities, both tribes
Uh-huh.
in one.
Okay.
If they, if all of them submit to it, then they will submit their daughters.
So the population is increasing, the number is increasing. Well, I think all of those are really good. There's a couple of little historical things. Shechem is going to become the name of the city. And as soon as Shechem comes up in this story, people who would have heard it when it was read, the little boy would have said to his dad, "Isn't there a city called Shechem?" "Yes, there is." Which would imply that the city doesn't have a noble lineage. The city was, by the way, this city was named after a rapist. So again, it's denigrating a city of people. It's also going to become important a little later because of the boys who do this. Because remember, there are 4 boys who are direct brothers of Dinah. You have Reuben, you have Simeon, you have Levi, and you have Judah. But it's only Simeon and Levi that do this, not Reuben, not Judah. When they acquire the land, when they enter the land, neither Levi nor Simeon will have a share in the land. And it's going to be grounded, the reason they don't receive a share of the land is going to be grounded in this story. In other words, Jacob was angry, self-servingly angry, but they are not going to share in the 12 tribes. Simeon is going to be kind of absorbed into Judah, and Levi is going to end up being a priest, but they have no land. They don't possess land as a tribe. And so, it's going to be the reason why they don't have land. They're not going to be one of the landed tribes. Okay. So anyway, what in chapter 35? So we got all this. In chapter 35, what goes on in 35? Okay, back to Bethel, and we've run across Bethel, and he settles there. He does what when he's in Bethel? Okay, and again, this is that tradition. We talked about different traditions. One where God talks to people mano a mano. One where God is kind of this distant voice. The other where God appears in dreams. And this is appearing to him in a vision, in a dream. So we know it's coming from that kind of strain. How does Jacob prepare his people as they're beginning to settle into the land? Okay, they've got to put away all their foreign gods. Now, why, and what else are they doing? They're putting away their foreign gods, but they're also doing what? Purifying themselves. And those two things are linked. What then is Jacob commanding that his people do as they start to settle in this land? They're going to have to follow God. They're going to have to put away those other foreign gods, and they're going to focus on God. And Bethel is going to be a key focus. Now, understand, Bethel is in the north. So this is one of those northern stories, where Bethel becomes really, really important. Okay? But we're going to see the north important in a lot of ways. Most of the Joseph stories tend to be north. Okay, so they settled in Bethel. What happens to them at Bethel? Very interesting. What happens to Jacob at Bethel? What's that? Nobody chases him. No confrontation. What happens in verse 9? God appears to Jacob again, right? And what does God do with Jacob when he appears to Jacob? Okay, blesses him, restates the covenant. What else does he do? Changes his name. Wait a minute, time out. Didn't he already have his name changed? What are we talking about here? Two different traditions. We saw that before. Even when Jacob went to go to Laban. Remember? Two different traditions. One tradition said he was running away from his brother, and his mother sent him there because his father was dead, and his brother was, as soon as he stopped mourning for his father, was going to get him. You got to get to Laban. The other tradition is Esau married Hittite women, and Jacob and Rebekah and Isaac didn't want Jacob to marry. So they sent him to Laban. So you have two different strangers. How he ends up with Laban. Same thing here. How is his name changed? Well, he wrestled with the guy in the desert by the Jacob River. Well, this says God appeared to him and said, "You are now Israel." Doesn't matter. His name is changed and the covenant is re-established. Right? Okay. So, Jacob does this. God reestablishes his covenant, goes back to, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, your fathers. Jacob, or Israel now, is in line. And what happens with Rachel? Okay, Rachel is in childbirth, right? And she dies in childbirth, but she has another son. And what is the son? Okay, the son's name is Benjamin. So there are two sons of Rachel, right? And who are the two sons of Rachel? Joseph and Benjamin. Those are the two sons of Rachel. And Rachel, how did Jacob view Rachel? She was the one she loved. She was the one he loved. Therefore, the sons probably would be the ones he loves more. That would carry the promise. That this is, although they're not the oldest, that they would certainly be the favorite sons. The other ones wouldn't be. So we've got Joseph and we've got Benjamin. Now, there's a problem though if the promise is going to flow through either Joseph or Benjamin, right? Jacob already has an older son, right? And what is the oldest son? Okay, the oldest son is Reuben, right? And so what happens with Reuben? What story kind of offers us a reason why Reuben doesn't become the sandwich in his father's eyes? Yes, he has a slider with Bilhah. Now understand, Bilhah is kind of in his mom's generation, so we could say Bilhah was a cougar, and what? Yeah, I'm thinking that too. But she's called a concubine. And as anybody who's been in the forest, concubines have quills that can really cause you damage. Really hurt. So we've got this is so Reuben is, let's just say Reuben has lost his sauerkraut and is now just a pile of corned beef, you know. And the writer tells us that we have, what does the writer remind us as we come to the end of chapter 35? Okay, we've got 12 sons. Gee, 12 sounds pretty important, right? Because we're going to have what? 12 tribes. We're also going to have
12 months in a year.
12 months in a year. We're going to have 12 apostles. So 12 is going to be a kind of a very important number. Okay. So, and his father, they end up being close to that field, right? Where Abraham is buried, Sarah is buried, Isaac is buried. Okay. So, here we go. Now, let's spend a lot of time working on 36. Because 36, that fades in that, because 36 is really crucial. Let's go through that verse by verse. No, that would be stupid. I'd be an idiot. Because what do you see in chapter 36? Oh man, you got names coming all over the place. Yeah, they're begetting and begotten and begat. But understand, there were some bean counters, and the priests often tended to be bean counters. For them, they got real fired up about this stuff. You know, all these names. And when you go through Genesis, every now and then you'll run into a whole list of names, and you say, my gosh, why? Yeah, why? Well, I'll tell you, if you're reading the Bible, skip the list of names. I give you permission to skip the list of names. You know, and it is not, I'll tell you, it is not a sign of dedication. You know, because sometimes people think that, you know, man, I could get through chapter 36. That really shows I'm dedicated to God. Don't waste your time. Skip 36. It's not worth it. I think I told you once that when I was in Watford City, North Dakota. Watford City, North Dakota. We had a Christmas program, and a teenager in the church was going to do the reading. And I gave him I didn't print it out because at that time, you know, this was back in the 80s. Yeah. You know, printing was different than it is now. It was a little more challenging. Yeah. So I didn't print out the list for him. And getting the scripture in a document on the computer, because I still had a computer, you know, was harder because you had to type it. There was no cutting and pasting unless you could find it somewhere, and you couldn't find it because you didn't do the internet. This is before Al Gore invented it. And I just gave him the passage, and he was doing fine, you know, going to Bethlehem and that kind of thing. And the end of it was he was going to read John 1 through 18, which is in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And that's, you know, kind of a traditional way to end a Christmas-related service, because it's kind of like John's symbolic Christmas. You know, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, sort of thing. Well, this guy, instead of, so we had to open his Bible and read from the Bible. Instead of turning to John 1 through 18, he turned to Matthew 1 through 18. And if somebody's got a Bible with you, turn to Matthew chapter 1, 1 through 18. Huh?
It has all
The genealogy.
He started to read. And when he started reading it, I thought, why the heck is he reading that? And then it hit me that he had turned to the wrong book in the Bible. But I got to tell you, he read the entire, all of those names he read. Now, sweat was coming off of him. You know, sweat, he was sweating like a pig. You know, but he read it. You know, he didn't get a lot of the names, even in the neighborhood, but he read them. But then I told one fellow that had to read something with a Hebrew name in it. And he said, how do you prevent that name? And I said, nobody cares. You know, nobody's going to know. You know, all you need to do is say it in a way, say it with confidence, you know, and they'll say, who cares?
Or, oh, that's the way you say it.
Yeah, that's right. I've always said it this way. All right. So next week we are going to. So we Jacob becomes. This is the last time Jacob becomes a major figure, or Israel, because he kind of recedes, and it shifts to one of his sons, and the son that's going to be the focus is the son Joseph. And so next week we're going to look at 37 and 38, chapters 37, 38. And we're going to look at the Joseph story. And I'll tell you, we're still going to see, even in those stories, different strains of tradition.
Genealogy.
Not genealogy, but we're going to see different tradition strains. That the writer, as the guy compiles it and organizes it, kind of reshapes the story and includes, you know, different heroes, you know, depending on location. So we're going to have that going on next week. But we'll start on the Joseph story.
Is it more like different cultures?
Well, yeah, in a way. It's all within that one culture of Israel, Jewish culture. But suppose, and this is going to be really important later, and just because we're at a point where it's important to think about this. And because I mentioned it last week, but it's going to be important as we go through the Joseph stories. Later in the history of Israel, you're going to have a division. And Israel is going to divide into two parts. Or Solomon's kingdom is going to divide into two parts. And Solomon is, because David is, a descendant of Judah. And Judah is going to become really important. Well, you know, that's kind of a hard sell because he was the fourth son of Leah and Jacob. The fourth son. Not the first son, but the fourth son of Jacob's least favorite wife. So Judah, they're going to have to do a lot to get Judah up, you know, to become important in the story. Anyway, so we got the south, and the king, the Davidic kings, which is Solomon too, are going to come from Jerusalem, which is in the south. There's going to be a division after Solomon between Judah, which is going to be centered around Jerusalem, and the 10 northern kingdoms that are going to be centered further north. And if Judah becomes the key tribe in the south, the key tribe in the north is going to be a tribe called Ephraim. Now, you haven't seen the name Ephraim yet. Ephraim is going to be one of the sons of Joseph. He's going to have two sons. And so Ephraim, since Levi doesn't get a share of the land, Ephraim, the two sons of Joseph will. So there'll still be 12 tribes. But it's because Simeon is out. And Levi is a tribe, but a spiritual tribe. So what we're going to have is with Ephraim is going to be the heroes of the north. Well, if I'm from the tribe of Ephraim, I want Joseph to be the heroes of the story, right? I don't want Judah to be the heroes of the story. I want Joseph to be. If I'm from the south, I want Judah to be the heroes of the story, right? And that's what we're going to end up seeing. We're going to end up seeing, depending on their tribal background, some of the stories are going to tilt towards
Judah, some are going to tilt towards some of the northern tribes, depending on where they're from. And it's just something to be aware of, because the whole Joseph story is really geared to the north. You know, that tribe of Ephraim, which is going to be the dominant, the big population tribe in the north. So that's what we're going to see. And boy, the southern tribes are going to trash you. They really are. Because a lot of them are from the south. Yeah, and we can talk about that later. All right, let's have a word of prayer and then go home. Lord God, thank you so much for giving us this time together. Remind us that you continue to work with imperfect people. And that is good news for everybody in this room, because we are imperfect. So remind us that not only can you use us, but we can actually be carriers of the promise and of grace. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen.